I was horribly, ruthlessly, viciously attacked, is what someone with narcissistic personality disorder might say. Instead, though some people are already scrolling past, bye bye, I will instead say that someone more firmly than I think was rational criticized me for using the nickname Pierre Personality Disorder because they felt it was ableist. Oh boy, this video is going to have a terrible retention rate. The UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities describes persons with disabilities as those who have long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairments, which, in interaction with various barriers, may hinder their full and effective participation in society on an equal basis with others. Most people can recognize a person with a physical disability by seeing the tools they use to accommodate their needs: wheelchairs, crutches, walkers, wrist brace, hearing aids, seeing eye dogs, etc. Intellectual disabilities, we understand that covers people who are often lovely people, but asking them to do their own taxes is even less kind than it is for everybody else. Sensory impairments would be people who experience the world differently than the rest of us do, like people who can't handle flashing lights, loud noises, crowds, that sort of thing. Sometimes classifying a disability can be difficult. For example, if someone gets migraines from perfume, is that a sensory or a physical disability? I'd say physical, because in most cases, their bodies are involuntarily reacting to chemicals that someone else put in the air, causing swelling in their brain, aka a migraine. And that's why a lot of the most caring people you know already have switched to using scent-free products. All of the disabilities that we've touched on so far, those can be accommodated for. Someone who's blind can use a cane or a service animal. Someone who's been paralyzed can use a chair. Someone who's deaf can use an interpreter. And someone with asthma can ask people in their lives to use unscented laundry products and then find that most people are too selfish to do so and instead lock themselves in their home and wait for the sweet release of death. So, mental disabilities, what are those? Well, most of the time we would go looking in the DSM, which stands for the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. And we see widely recognized mental health disabilities like major depressive disorder, persistent depressive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety disorders, and addictions. Notice how I didn't say personality disorders. Remember how the UN Convention talked about barriers? For someone who's dyslexic like me, large blocks of text are a barrier. Not a huge one. I read a fair bit, and I love to write. But if you go back and read anything I've written without using software to proofread it, you're going to find a ton of duplicate words or missing ends of sentences because my brain moved on to the next sentence without telling me. But I can use software like ProWriting Aid or Grammarly to help catch those. Those are what we call accommodations. A personality disorder is different. The DSM defines personality disorders as an enduring pattern of inner experience and behavior that deviates markedly from the norms and expectations of the individual's culture, is pervasive and inflexible, has an onset in adolescence or early adulthood, is stable over time, and leads to distress or impairment. I'm going to focus on cluster B personality disorders as they're the ones who are most likely to want to take over a pride parade and make it all about themselves. Just building off that joke, a lot of the chaos that you'll see internally in queer organizations is due to people with personality disorders who may have accepted their identity as a queer person, but have not rejected their worst impulses and thus conflate queerness with disordered behavior. Cluster B personality disorders include antisocial personality disorder, which is a pattern of disregard and violation of the rights of others, criminality, impulsivity, and failure to learn from experience. Borderline personality disorder is a pattern of instability in interpersonal relationships, self image, and affects, and marked impulsivity. Histrionic personality disorder is a pattern of excessive emotionality and attention seeking. Narcissistic personality disorder is a pattern of grandiosity, need for admiration, and lack of empathy. What is the barrier for these people? You can't build a chair that deflates an overinflated sense of self. You can't give someone a cat that helps them care about other people. We can't get a device to put in someone's ear that makes them less likely to steal someone's bike for funsies. Essentially, personality disorders aren't about what people can and can't do. The overwhelming majority of people with personality disorders are not cognitively impaired. They know how to not be an asshole. They choose to be an asshole. Now, it's not to say that if someone is very practiced in ways of behaving poorly and also deeply uncurious, that it's easy for them to be kind to people. It's not. But it's not a disability. I can learn strategies that help me work around what my brain will naturally do when reading large blocks of text and in writing. But my issue isn't that I don't think reading or writing is important. My issue isn't that I think people who read are suckers. My issue isn't that I think everyone else would jumble up words in their head when reading if only they knew they could get away with it. Most people with personality disorders don't get diagnosed. They get promoted to management. As long as their actions aren't so egregious that somebody is willing to insist on taking it to HR and has also documented things up the wazoo beforehand, because HR is never going to be on your side. Most of the time, that person is never going to get a diagnosis because they'll never be held accountable. If someone has paranoid personality disorder, they will keep calling tech support every few days, claiming that children from Japan are hacking their phone, and they know that this is true because they went into settings and they found their phone's serial number, and that proves it. And you know what? They're probably going to be an asshole while they're having this conversation too. But there's nothing that the person on the other end of the phone can do to help with their delusion. You can't call something a disability if it's just you choosing to be a dick. And there's nothing that me or anyone else can do to make you not behave like a dick. And me not making fun of politicians who, yeah, in most cases are deeply mentally ill. Keeping in mind, I'm not the one who elected these nut jobs. That doesn't help anybody. So bye.